If you're like me, you spend lots of time poring over maps, looking at weather data, all in an effort to help predict when and where my best times to hunt will be. It'd be nice if there was a reliable source with all this information in one place. Enter the Spartan Forge app. Unlike some other predictive apps on the market, Spartan Forge was created from military combat intelligence experience tailored for hunters, and stands at the nexus of machine learning and white-tailed deer hunting. No more man-made algorithms. This is a predictive model based on real GPS collared deer data, historical and predictive weather, and the next level of mapping imagery, all at my fingertips. I've been using the iOS app this season, and it has replaced all my other mapping tools. Visit SpartanForge.ai and sign up today, or head to your iOS or Android app store. Use the promo code TRUTH to save some money and download it today. Mobile hunters, if you're interested in upping your mobile game, then head to tetherednation.com and check out their saddle gear. There are a few things you can actually buy that will help you become a better deer hunter or give you the freedom to hunt any tree or any situation. This is the reason why I started saddle hunting in the first place and why I use Tethered's gear. I can honestly say that Tethered's saddle gear has changed how I hunt for the better. Big tree, little tree, from the ground, it doesn't matter. I'm untethered by my gear to hunt the best setup for the situation, instead of hunting for a tree that my gear can use. My current core setup consists of the Phantom saddle, tethered one sticks, and the Predator platform, along with an assortment of their accessories. So if you want to up your mobile game, head over to tetherednation.com. Welcome to the Truth and Stand Deer Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Spartan Forge. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you're listening to episode number 323. Today I'm joined by Jeremy Aron of Do It Yourself Hunter, and we're talking travel hunts for mature bucks and water access that got western. So stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you are feeling fine. If you are regional, hopefully you had a chance to get out to the Great American Outdoor Show and see some of our buddies. Maybe pick up some gear at a show discounted price. It's always a cool time of year to kind of get to see everyone. Whenever I was out there the previous weekend, get to talk to everybody, kind of run into folks that you see that maybe you chat with online or whatever the case is. But for me, this past weekend, did get out and do a little scouting. I was actually going to head to the North Piece, but that just didn't come to fruition. There was a little bit of a weirdness that I was alerted to in that general area, some nonsense, if you will. And so I figured, you know what? I don't need any additional nonsense in my life, so I'll just stay home. And I ended up going out and just pulling a bunch of cameras because I had yet to pull any of the cameras local to me. So loaded up the pup. He and I went out, did some scouting and pulled cameras. It wasn't a long day. I mainly just kind of scouted along the way. Took some, maybe longer routes into areas where I had cameras to kind of check some areas out. But most of these areas I'm pretty familiar with. I have them, somewhat dialed in. I'll say this past year though just wasn't great deer to kind of chase. And so after I pulled all the cameras, came home, flipped through all the camera cards, and even still, letting some of those cameras that I didn't even check during the course of the year, let them soak for the whole year. I think there was maybe one deer that was borderline shooter, maybe. I would say most every other year probably would just let him go, and probably would have this year. The theme continues that even with cameras that I hadn't checked at all and let them soak, there still wasn't really anything to speak of. I think I pulled 5 or 6 yesterday. I think I have 5 or 6 more that I need to get to pull. One in particular that I let kind of hang because I hadn't been in there. Actually, I didn't even hunt this spot at all this past year. Just never made it to it. But it was a spot the year prior that I had a really good encounter with 2 really good bucks. So I'm kind of interested to pull that camera and see kind of what was happening there. There's that one and one other camera that I hadn't checked out all season. So I'm fingers crossed there's something good there. And then the other ones that I still have the pool, I had checked those periodically throughout the season just to kind of see what inventory was kind of happening. There was, the one was where was near where I had the really good encounter this October, but that was literally the only good buck that I had on camera, and I managed to see him. So plans will be probably beginning of March is when I'll probably head to the North Piece. I have some obligations here the next couple weekends. Where I'll be able to get out locally, but I just won't be able to do really, really any traveling. But with that, we're not going to belabor this up front. We're just going to kind of go ahead and jump into things, man. Have a cool show for you guys today. Have Jeremy Aron on. Jeremy Aron is, he kind of started the do-it-yourself hunter YouTube channel. So Jeremy, years ago actually had a show on the outdoor channel. He kind of tells a story a little bit, some family obligations kind of took over. He had to back burner some of this stuff. And then, he kind of kicked it back off again once some of those things kind of, those obligations became less, I guess you would say. And then he had Daniel Lemon come on, which if you guys listened to the podcast a few weeks ago, I had Daniel on to kind of talk to him. And Jeremy's been a travel hunter for decades. This is something that he's been doing for a long, long time. Like he was travel hunting before travel hunting was cool. He was filming before, everybody started filming, and filming became cool. And really, he's at a point in his life where he really just wants to share the things that he's learned and try to help people understand that you don't have to have a lot of money. You don't have to have a lot of gear. You don't have to have a lot of things to go do these travel hunts. You don't have to go far away either. And so he kind of has a strategy as to kind of how he plans his travel hunts and stuff like that to try to minimize the impact. And he built a purpose-built, a purpose-built life. He knew as he got older that he wanted to not be, a slave to the grind, into his 50s, 60s, whatever. And so he kind of set a milestone of like, I want to be out by the time roughly he was 50. So he could just hunt as much as he absolutely wanted to and do whatever he wanted to do. And he did that. He had a couple businesses that he sold and was able to kind of manifest that life for himself. And it's nothing that anyone listening to this episode or this podcast in general, couldn't do for themselves if they really wanted to. So Jeremy's a super cool dude. Really enjoyed our conversation and just really kind of, salt of the earth type of person. And I just really enjoy talking with folks like Jeremy. So with that, we're going to go ahead and jump into today's show. And as always, thank you all for listening. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today I have on a fellow I've wanted to have on for a little while. I had his counterpart on just a few weeks ago. If you guys remember, if you listen to that podcast, I had Daniel on from the Do-It-Yourself Hunter. And today I have on Mr. Jeremy Aron from Do-It-Yourself Hunter. How's it going, buddy?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Good, man. How's so you're in Mississippi, right?
Yep, in north central Mississippi.
Nice. How's Mississippi treating you these days?
Oh, I can't complain.
Yeah,
I can't complain. It's like I said, it's a pretty state with some good folks here.
That's right. It's Mississippi is one of the places that I've never been to. So if you had to give a northerner some southern hospitality from Mississippi, where would you suggest I visit?
Oh, any part of the state. That's our motto. Is the hospitality state.
Is it really the motto?
And it is. It is.
Oh, wow.
The hospitality state. Because you go down a country road, don't be surprised somebody wave at you. It's just that's when we can go to different parts of the country and you see somebody and you wave and they just look at you like, I don't know you.
Right. Yeah.
But,
yeah.
That's
they wave around here, but they wave a little different, maybe.
okay. Yeah, we just throw a hand up. We don't just sit there and wave you down. It's like, hey.
Right. Yeah. No, I grew up in like central Pennsylvania, pretty like super rural area of Pennsylvania, down near the Mason-Dixon. Not far from the Maryland border, and also not very far from West Virginia, where I grew up. And that's kind of how I grew up. Was I remember when I first moved away, like you'd be driving, whether you were in your pickup or even if I was helping my grandfather and my stepdad and my uncles like on the farm or whatever, driving the tractor or whatever, and like anyone who passed you, whether you knew them or not, if they had their hand on the steering wheel, they just put up the one finger, just like the index finger, just like give you a little shake, like, hey, what's going on, buddy? And so I thought that was just kind of normal. That's how I grew up. So everywhere I'd go, I'd pass a car somewhere, you just kind of give them a little wave. And I moved to Orlando because I was a musician. And that's kind of where I needed to be, like for the band that I was playing in and stuff like that. And I remember I was waving to random people as I was driving. And I made a friend when we got there. He's like, why do you wave at everybody? And I was just like, I don't know where I'm from. I was like, you just wave at people,
Yeah, it's second nature.
He's like, he was like, man, you know a lot of people. You haven't lived here that long. I was like, I don't know any of those people. And I was like, that's just what you do. When you have a country upbringing, man, you're just polite to everyone unless they give you a reason not to be.
Oh yeah, like when you walk in a country store or something, you just say morning. You don't know them. You you greet them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Our good day. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Try to make everyone's day just a little bit better if you can. I think that's kind of the
That's
approach,
right.
right? That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
And today, what we're going to try to do is try to make everyone's deer hunting a little bit better, maybe, or maybe tell some hunting stories, man. But before we kick all that off, I know we just mentioned that you're from Mississippi, but what do you do for a living, and were you born and raised in Mississippi, or did you kind of make your way there otherwise?
No, I was born and raised.
Mm-hmm.
My mom and dad, and I'm the third generation that lived in the same little town here.
Okay.
And my wife is too. Basically, I grew up on a small little farm, small town of, I think we may have 2,000 inside the city limits of the town.
Okay.
It's a sawmill town, so it's sort of rural, a little bit of agriculture in the river bottoms, but we had a big warehousing mill, and the town of Bruce, the town I live in, was basically named from Bruce Flooring. Back in the I think 1926 they moved in here. So I grew up around cattle. We farmed a little bit, then got in the timber business. Had a hardwood sawmill in the 90s. Basically logged. Had a finning crew. Always been self-employed. Me and my dad worked together. Had a goal to make a living hunting when I was in my 20s. I thought, man, that was my dream. And in 2003, we got a show to the Outdoor Channel. We had to do it self-hunter on the Outdoor Channel in 2003. That we was on from January 1st, through the first 2 quarters through June. But didn't quite work out.
Right.
Was young, had married and had 3 small kids at home. And sort of had to pick between hunting and the family. And I'm like, well, it ain't worth it. So we backed off, and we got the girls grown. And I always had a goal of retiring early.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I was 20 years old, I want to retire when I'm 40. Why work your whole life? So I didn't mind busting my tail. I worked 7 days a week a lot of times. But when I was 40, the girls still in high school. Well, if anybody knows you got the girls are very expensive.
Yeah, I got a 14-year-old myself. So yeah.
Yeah, so but when I hit 50, my dad died right before I hit 50. He died in January, and I turned 50 in February. And like I said, I've worked with him my whole life, and I seen how he went down his last year or two. And the girls pretty much was out of school. 2 of them are ER nurses, and the others got a good job. I'm not gonna work the rest of my life. And when you get them girls out of the house, you think, man, you don't need as much money.
Right.
So, and like I said, I sold a business out in around 2099, and I didn't hunt for like 3 years. I said I'm gonna make a living hunting. I didn't do nothing but hunt. In my late 20s. I was very fortunate, and my dad sort of he wasn't a big hunter, but he always knew that was my passion, and he helped me get going out west. He took me out west when I was 16. Went to Colorado the first time. But I turned 56 next month, or this month, in a couple of weeks. So that's what really got me into hunting. I just loved it. I just went, even when I was high school, I coon hunted a bunch. But then when I got going out west, I got to go to Montana. I think I went 12, 13 years in a row.
Right.
Had a few contacts out there that got us going out there. Man, after I got doing it, I love it. But I was driving all past the Midwest.
Right.
For all them years. I drove right past Kansas and Iowa and all them, and going elk hunting and mule deer hunting and whitetail hunting out there. And that's like Daniel has come in, like I said, 2003, he was but 2 years old.
Right.
A year old. But I knew his dad. His dad hunted with me back then. So I sort of took him in here later after I got the girls grown, and this is what I wanted to do. Now I reinvested back after I sold out that sawmill. I had to start all back over again, knowing I wanted to retire, and I basically managed to set some assets back in some rental property and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So now I'm back at it, and I don't have to make a living at it. It's for fun. So it's a lot different now, and that's why I really encourage other guys to get out and do a lot of this stuff, because they may not have a dad or somebody that really helped them like I had, or there's a lot of some of the going out west. My dad took me the first time, but the Montana stuff was some of his buddies. I just sort of got tagged along with them.
Okay.
And I look at, man, if I wouldn't have got to tag along with them, I'd never done all this stuff.
Right.
So, so, so I guess that's why you see a lot of my shows. I really encourage folks to, hey, if you got a bucket list, something you want to do, you're not guaranteed tomorrow.
That's right.
Get out there and do it.
Yeah.
And a lot of the old saying always used to be about out west is you can't afford it. You can't afford it.
Yeah.
But the saying is, the way I've heard it from somebody else. I'll quote it, that you're gonna run out of health before you run out of wealth.
That's right.
So find a way to do it where you can, when you're young and in shape, especially the out west stuff, the mountain stuff.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about me. Like I said, I just love to hunt. I love to pass on what I know. And I guess when you turn 50, when you're younger, you always think, well, 50's over the hill.
Right.
But when you hit 50, you get thinking, man, how many folks live to be 100?
Right. Yeah.
You done passed over the hill a long time ago.
Right. That's a small hill, right?
That's right. So you start thinking a lot different then from being aggressive, in business and stuff like that. It's man, you've done your work. The way I looked at it, I didn't want to always keep up with the Joneses, though, saying, always wanting the biggest and best. All my buddies had, that never interested me. I love making money in business now. Don't get me wrong. I'm very competitive. And I look at my hunting the same way. When I go hunting, I'm going to give it 100% when I go.
Yeah.
A lot of folks I see, and they go and they're big group efforts, and they go and have a big time. I've got, over the last 15 years, I love going by myself.
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that, because that's come up probably the past. This will be the third podcast that kind of question has come up. I was talking to a buddy of mine, Jace Allen. He's a younger guy. And he travels to hunt a little bit. And this year, he's one of those guys that had a kind of the same kind of, epiphany I think maybe you had when you were younger, where he, was working and he's passionate about the outdoors. He's a heck of a hunter too. And he was just like, I just got to thinking, like, this isn't, I want to hunt. I want to do my passion, and I want to just challenge myself to see if I just gave it everything I had, for one season, just one time, like, what would that look like? So he worked sporadically, like, throughout the year, but I think he said 97 days in the field, not including like travel time, from September through, or mid-September through, I don't know, let's say like around January or something like that. And, it was just him kind of saying, like, I want to just kind of go after this. But his thing was like, most of the stuff that he did was solo. Like, he had a very small period of time where he had a guy with him when he was in Kentucky, and he killed a Boone and Crockett public land buck in Kentucky. And then he had I think he said 2 or 3 of his buddies, they had planned previously like a mule deer hunt in Nebraska that he was with. But otherwise, out of those 97 days, like probably 80 some plus odd days, he was by himself, and he prefers to hunt by himself. And I'm just curious, why do you prefer to hunt by yourself? He gave me his reasons why. I kind of prefer it as well for the most part, unless I have the right guy to travel with. But I'm curious to see why you prefer to kind of go solo.
Well, the main thing solo, you can rig your vehicle up where you can stay in it. I got it where, I went to a Subaru here in the last couple of years, because I can sleep in the back of it, and you're more mobile. So you can go to one state, and I've always done this over the years. Is I knew before I had a week or two to hunt, I'd pick a corner of a state, because if I tagged out, I could jump over to the next state. But if I could buy a tag on the counter, so what I really like about being by yourself is how you can move. You're not sitting there waiting on, say if you and your buddy go to Missouri, both of you got tags, you go in one vehicle, save gas. Well, say the first guy tags out first day.
Right.
He's sitting around waiting on you, and you're sitting there, you can't go nowhere because you're together. So if you really want to get after it and hunt multiple states, it's a lot better to go by yourself. Right. But, and like I said, you make decisions, you ain't got to sit there and wait on somebody else to Daniel, we went to Wisconsin last year. We went in separate vehicles, and we started out. I hunt rivers. I like hunting from a boat. Well, he's got good legs on him. He can walk his tail off. Well, he got finding sign up in the hills, and like, man, I don't really want to hunt them hills. But he kept finding sign in them hills, finding sign in the hills. Well, it changed the way I love to hunt. So I got going up in the hills, and I didn't do any good. And I'm like, dang, I stayed on them rivers. I know how to hunt them. So that's one reason I like to go by myself, because I know what I'm good at.
Right.
I know, and you can always find rivers anywhere, or in bottoms.
Right.
That's just my style of hunting.
Right.
So,
And he kind of said something similar to where his was, you know, he said he's like, I feel like whenever there's other people around, he's like, he's like, as much as I'm trying to kill a buck that I'm after, also trying to, grow my skill set. He's like, and I don't know if whenever I'm making decisions, whenever I have other people around, if they're my decisions or if I was influenced by somebody else just, unintentionally. And maybe I made a
uh,
decision that I wouldn't otherwise made. And so now I don't have, you know, I can't necessarily, that was my decision 100%. And I'm not quite sure how to learn from it. He's like, whereas if I'm by myself and I make a decision and it's wrong and I make the mistake, I know it's my mistake and I can backtrack, why the mistake was
uh,
made and figure out how to not make that mistake again. You
yeah,
know, he was like, so that was kind of his rationale for it. But
yeah.
I do
Does
agree
he
with like
does,
the,
does
I'm sorry, go ahead.
does he stay in his own vehicle, or does he stay in motel rooms, or
Yeah, he
how does he?
usually, it depends on the place, but a lot of times I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's kind of like truck camping, or he'll, depending on the time of year, he'll throw out a tent, and tent camp
Okay,
somewhere
okay,
or whatever.
okay,
But yeah, and
okay.
I similarly kind of take a similar approach. A lot of mine's solo. A buddy of mine, Chad, will go with me, but we're very similar in how we hunt. We always take two separate vehicles, and one of us can bail. And it's happened before where he's killed and he's had to bail, and I was there kind of like the rest of the trip or whatever.
Yeah.
Um, but what I did was I actually took a small cargo trailer, like a 6x10 cargo trailer, and I put a bunk in it, and then I actually have Wi-Fi in it, so I can actually work from it if I have to, so I can extend my trips, and solar
Okay.
power, and like it's like my little mobile, rolling hunting rig essentially.
Yeah. The way I look at all that how how's gas it got, man, it costs you to do all that. Pulling that trailer and everything. That's why I went with a car.
Right.
Uh, I could sleep in it, and the tent. Say you get in at night after dark. Well,
Yeah.
you got all your tent spread, everything. It takes a little while to pack everything up and get ready to go, man.
Yeah.
If you don't have all that out, you can just jump, pick up and head to the next spot, or look for another WMA, another county over or something.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
that,
So, go ahead.
no, that's just all I'm gonna say.
Yeah. So I was just curious, how many days in a season are you spending in the field, do you think? Just I guess on average or approximately.
Yeah, well, I'd probably say it's like basically it's been the third year that I really got to go. I basically retired.
Right.
I didn't have to be home unless it was some kind of family event or something like that. This year, I think it's like probably 60, 65.
Okay.
Because I was one of them was a 3 week trip. I was gone 21 days.
Okay.
But yeah, I tried doing that. And in turkey season, I usually try spending probably 3 weeks
Yeah.
uh,
That
scattered.
that 21-day stretch, was that out west?
No, I went to Wisconsin. I had a North Dakota tag. We hunted Wisconsin, like I said, the year before. I love Wisconsin, but that's something that just kicked my tail. It's still ground, and I'm going back. I missed a big deer up there last year. I shot right under him. He was thick, and I just shot right under him. I left the camera up there this summer. Me and my wife went back this summer traveling. I left it out all winter. I went back this summer traveling, and we went through there, and I checked that camera. Well, hecky, I had pictures of him at the end of January, so I knew he was still there. So it just ate on me all summer that, man, I got to get back up there. I got to get back up there to that place, knowing I already had 5 tags drawn this year.
Wow.
I had a Montana tag. I didn't even step foot in Montana this year. I had a deer nail tag
Oh wow.
because I wanted to go back up there and hunt that deer, and I did. And it kicked my tail again. I was basically spitting. I went to Wisconsin, and I had a North Dakota tag. I went and hunted North Dakota 1 week. Never hunted it before. Seen some pretty good deer, just didn't see what I want to shoot. And I went back to Wisconsin, man, and I could get close to that deer, just couldn't make it happen. So
Right.
I, so
What
that was that 3 week trip.
okay, what was the deal with that deer in Wisconsin? What was the I guess why did he kick your tail? What was the
Well, I just couldn't. They had more corn in the fields this year.
Okay.
I think he was staying in the fields. Last year most of it was cut except one little block right in there, and he was cutting across that block. And where the corn was private, but the woods was public. And I caught him coming across it that day. I missed him, And like I said, I left the camera on a trail in there, and he kept coming through it just every once in a while later. So I knew he was still there. Uh, and like I said, I went early. I went the last week of October
Okay.
and tried to catch him. You know, so I was pretty sure he was still there. And he wasn't just no monster deer, but he was a good deer. You know, I knew last year he was a good deer. It would have been a real good one this year. And it just, like I said, it just had sometimes it happens like it just, and that's usually how I do not kill big deer is find one and stay with him. I do a lot better is going in an area blind, find good sign and set on it, and just odds are I'm going to come through there with the right weather and the right time of the year.
Right. Right. I was actually going to ask you that because as I was thinking about, you and I chat, I'm always curious that people like to travel, that like to travel to hunt, if they prefer to have a little time in the place or if they kind of prefer to go in blind. Like I've grown to just kind of prefer to go in blind. Now, if I've hunted a place multiple times, or 2 different years or whatever, you have a little bit of, base knowledge, but a lot can change within, a year, 2 years time.
Yeah.
But I'm just curious, like, what's your approach? Like if you're going to a place and you've never been there before, just say like North Dakota, for example, you said you'd never been there. Like what's your approach to trying to figure out a hunt? How many days do you kind of, I don't want to say allot yourself, but like, I know at least in the back of my mind, if I'm going somewhere new, I'm kind of like, all right, I'd really try to like to find deer by this time and then try to start hunting deer by like this day.
Yeah, what I learned, you really need to set yourself limits of days and say, hey, if it don't happen then, get out of there.
Right.
Don't get in a rut and just keep thinking, well, it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Especially when you're planning for multiple states. Like that trip, I was planning on going to Montana. I was planning on getting on up to Montana. But what I was looking for in North Dakota before I got the tag was to hunt the Missouri River. But man, I got caught in game fishing or something. They like, man, EHD killed us last year. Deer, whitetail numbers are down. So I had to change places, and I sort of got thinking, well, heck, I just hit the southeast corner of the state then, and hunt Wisconsin. Because I thought I could go to Wisconsin within a few days and kill that deer.
Right.
And
okay.
And it didn't happen.
Right.
So, and then I was going to hit in North Dakota and going to Montana, but it didn't. And I even went back that shotgun season back up there, tried killing that deer, and it just didn't happen. So I learned a lesson, but I'll probably go back next trip there. There is something about that state I like. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So,
so I mean, you did 5 states this year, right? Is what you kind of mentioned. Like, how do you?
Well,
or you had 5 tags, I guess I should say. So
yeah,
you had to do some level, I guess, of planning for each of them, knowing that you had each of those tags. So how do you kind of sit down and plan out your year, knowing that you want to do a bunch of traveling, you want to get to different states. There might be some states you want to get back to again, like that Wisconsin one, because there's a deer there you want to try to kill, and maybe you want to add something new because you want a new experience. Like, how do you go about kind of starting to make your plan for the year?
Well, that's why I just put out a video the other day about thinking about how. So I look, I always had a goal to kill a deer in as many states as I can. Not the biggest one, just a mature deer. And like now I'm thinking, I go place a turkey and scout for deer. I know where I can go buy over the counter tags. So I put my draw stuff in first. Basically Iowa and Kansas or the whitetail if you want to go there. But I've learned don't try. One year I had a tag in Indiana, and I had a Kansas tag, and I killed a deer in Indiana. I think the 6th, and man, a good major front come through. Well, heck, I'd been up there a week, so I knew I needed to come back home before I went to Kansas. I got out in Kansas and couldn't find him, and come back, and I'm like, dang, I'm gonna go back there. But I learned don't spread it out. If you want to hunt several different states, try keeping them west, or try keeping them central, or try keeping them east. Don't lose a day or two in travel time in prime time, because you just got so many days in that November prime time to kill them big jumpers.
Right. And so what time frame are you typically kind of setting up these hunts?
Like I said, I've got, as long as you're not in a family event, I can go anytime I want to. It took me 30 years to ever get to do that. But November. I'll say what I found about Wisconsin, their rut kicks in pretty good about Halloween. The last few days of October, So I really got trying to hunt north and then start working back down. Uh, a lot of Kansas and Iowa. That 18th to the 20th has been the magic day. So and see that Indiana seemed like it was more toward the 1st of November. So I sort of found areas. I sort of know when the peak of the rut is if you get the right weather. If you get the right weather and that moon, if you can get, I like that full moon and just a few days after it. I like a few days before and full moon and right after if it hits in them dates that I've learned when the rut's good right there. Like I said, I think I've hunted 22 states and I killed animals in 21. So, and I've been doing it, almost 40 years. So I've got a lot of, and I kept up with a lot of this stuff. I wrote it down. It's when I killed deer and stuff like that. But most of the big deer I killed has been that November. I think I've killed 3 of them on November 18th. One on November 21st. It just seems like it. And most time it's not the first of the rut. It's toward the backside of that rut when they get them big ones on their feet. I don't know if they're just looking for them last few does. And most every one of them's been just roaming. They wasn't with those. They were just up roaming after major fronts.
Right. Right. Yeah. So that's interesting. Like I usually, when I travel, I usually go probably the second week of November. Oftentimes, like the second and third week. If I'm doing 2 weeks, I'll go the second and third week.
Uh-huh.
Is usually when I go. I know for me, I've had a lot of deer activity around. Like if I'm in Kansas, I know like just some buddies that have hunted it, and then just what I had seen like the 6th, like that day is just seems to be crazy. Just I've seen this year on the 6th, I saw 30 deer that day,
Uh-huh.
which was just, and I don't even know how many bucks I saw that day. It was the most deer I've ever seen. Not sitting a food source somewhere, sitting like a brushy draw. It's just
Uh-huh. Yeah.
it was bonkers. And I'll kind of map dates even into like October, at least for local. Like I'll have some prime spots that I know, like the first, a big deer will make his first daylight appearance around this 3-day period, like in this area. And it's just from
Uh-huh.
years of watching it or years of hunting it and just having cameras on scrapes in those areas and stuff like that. And so it sounds like you do a little bit of that date mapping for traveling too, because like in certain pockets, like
Oh yeah.
things are going to heat up. That way you can kind of make,
Oh yeah.
be efficient with your travel and stuff, right?
I do because basically we start hunting back Arkansas. We got a place in Arkansas that's good from Thanksgiving to about the 10th of December. So I want to be through with the Midwest then and come back that way.
Okay.
Come back down here in the South. So yeah, it's I do like keeping up with the dates like that, and it's pretty. It, it may vary a little bit from year to year, but generally, on a 10-year average, that rut's going to be about the same
Yeah.
date or two. And like I said, and what's funny is how it's so much different. And one thing I'd say to y'all northern guys, you probably ain't got how ours here in Mississippi is. Ours starts in the Delta, and when I say the Delta is on the Mississippi River, uh, around the 1st of December. But in the hill country where I'm at, it's basically the last few days of the year to say the 15th of January. Our deer basically got shot out years ago, and they got transplanted in from different parts of the country, and I think that what affects our rut down here is where they really came from.
Right. So I knew oh, hold on. Alabama, I know has multiple ruts, right? Like
Uh-huh.
probably like 5 different ruts. Do you have something similar in Mississippi?
We
Like
do, we do,
you do?
we do, because I've just got noticing on, you can learn a lot about a lot of these Facebook groups,
Mhm.
In the last few days, I've been seeing guys kill deer in southern Alabama and southern Mississippi. They claim he's chasing. They're still got. So yeah, you can. I definitely keep up with the rut dates and stuff in different areas.
Right. So you'd mentioned that you've been to 22 different states and you've filled a tag in 21 of them, if I'm not mistaken. Is there at this point, are there any states that you haven't been to that you're kind of itching to go to, or have you kind of hit all the states that you have an interest in?
No, 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 no. There's still. I hadn't. I want to go to Ohio this year, so I'm gonna
Okay.
probably venture up there turkey hunting. See, I hadn't hunted Ohio. A lot of guys keep saying, "Hey, you need to hit that West Virginia, them archery states, or archery counties right in the
Yeah.
western side, right there." Oh, I do like, but I'm a flatlander. I don't really like the dead gum hills. But uh, but we don't have them right here. We got rolling hills, but I think that's around here our elevation maybe 400 feet
Right.
is the highest spot.
Right.
So I grew up hunting river bottoms, so flats. That's what I think I'm pretty good at. But I do like challenging myself every once in a while. Uh, uh, and,
So,
I love in the off season just sit down and a lot of time, like I said, I'm going to be 56. I don't sleep good at night sometimes,
mhm.
but man, I wake up just sit and look at maps, especially in the off season, and just sort of look at areas. And I've always loved to travel, and I've got my wife. We've been in all 50 states, so I sort of know what all the terrain looks like in the country. Okay, when I was traveling, that's what I was looking. I was halfway, seeing the country, but seeing what type of hunting I had to do. So,
Right. What you mentioned, that you prefer to hunt those river bottoms and stuff like that. And I just got to ask because, I grew up in a part of Pennsylvania where it was all hills, you know. And typically when I travel to hunt outside of going to Kansas, I usually kind of gravitate toward the hills. Like I've hunted, all the hill country in Ohio and stuff like that. Um,
uh-huh.
but one thing I always kind of struggle with is, and I know how to hunt it. I can play the wind, I can play the thermals correctly, and and all that stuff, right? Uh, what I do struggle with is whenever I'm in kind of flat. I was hunting river bottom whenever I was in Missouri. I got on some decent
Uh-huh.
bucks, but just couldn't seal the deal. Um, but just that flat kind of swamp, river bottom kind of terrain, like if there's not undulation. Even I'll be honest with you. There's even like a big woods piece here in PA that I hunt. That's in North PA. That's mountain. That's mountain area. Like pretty substantial mountains. But
Uh-huh.
where the land is, you're already on top of the mountain, so it's a lot of like kind of mountain tops that are just really flat and wide, right?
Okay.
And
Mm-hmm.
so what I kind of struggle with, whether it's in those mountain top flats or hunting a river bottom or hunting a swamp or whatever, is just not having any terrain really to speak of that's going to move deer. Because when I'm looking at maps and I do my map study and stuff, it's like, I'm looking for that terrain that's going to push deer around. It becomes a little harder for me whenever I'm scouting, because I don't see that terrain and I need to focus more on, vegetation, maybe or habitat that creates those funnels, those pinches and
Well,
stuff like that. So how do you kind of
well,
break down those flat areas?
one key thing about a flat, watch for elevation change. You tree species change on a foot or two of elevation.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times lower it stays wet more, and you lose your mass crop trees. But you liable to have one little ridge that's you got to get a map that's and that's I don't know what's the right word to say. It's just like a 10-foot interval instead of a 100-foot interval,
Right.
or to really show up just a little bit of a high spot. You find a lot there. It's just a little bit of difference in elevation, and then bucks usually I hit that little bit of higher area if it's thick, and that's where they're gonna rub. That's where they're gonna make a straight line and stuff. Uh, that you know, you find in transitions just like you do anything else. So
Right.
in timber change, uh, but you use that water. That's one thing I love about hunting rivers. Most of the time they're natural barriers. They're going right up beside them and running parallel with them.
Right.
I've killed so many deer out of a boat that you shoot him and he falls right there by the river. So, and most time you're not hunting. You know, a lot of times I'm hunting within sight of the boat. Within 100 yards of it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of my favorite things about water access is being able to kind of just slip in real slick, and get
Uh-huh.
out. You don't really lay down much ground scent, if any, and keep the area clean. And it's nice because that area stays huntable for multiple hunts, without
Yeah.
really, boogering it up too much.
Well, and you get away from the crowds.
Yeah.
I've got a little different philosophy. Most hunters like to fish, so they got a fishing boat. Uh, and it's a bigger fishing boat. Well, a bigger fishing boat takes a boat ramp, a bigger boat ramp, and it takes deeper water. So I look for shallower, small, some folks call it thin water, foot and a half deep water,
Right.
but I can still navigate up it. And see, that almost eliminates everybody.
Right.
And most of the time, you can take a block and may be a mile to walk in. Well, yeah, I can scoot around in my little old boat and get out on the back side of it and you hunt right there right off the bank.
Right. What percentage of your hunts do you think you use water access versus just walking? Like, I mean, is that
Yeah.
something you seek out even when you're traveling? You're like, hey, I'm gonna just look for where I can find, big
Oh yeah,
rivers or lakes or whatever the case is.
yeah. That's the first thing I look for is navigable water.
Okay.
Because then you run into all type of public land. If you get up any of these rivers that's got locks in them, well, that's Corps engineer owns them. All the high water marks on the locks. You find a lake, a Corps lake in the, there's Corps land there. I hunt a lot of Corps engineer land. A lot of states, they lease some of it from them and their WMAs on it. But that's what I key in on. But, I find some areas to walk in too. Hunting by yourself, another advantage. I don't need a big block. I'm just, I've killed a lot of deer on 20-acre blocks and less. It'd be hard to get to little corners. Another one of my secrets, I hate to say it, is I find that areas you can't hunt on public, then there's public right next to it you can hunt. So where's the big deer at? They learn the spots you can't hunt. Say like state park or something you can't hunt. But there may be one little old corner on the backside that's public that joins it. But the only time you can ever come off that sucker though is during a rut. So
Right.
it's all that's timing.
Right. Yeah, I was just gonna say that, like, you have to time the right. And as you're talking, I'm actually thinking of a place that I scouted years ago and have looked on the map multiple times. And every time I look at it, I'm like, man, I want to hunt this, but the only place I want to hunt this is the area that's no hunting. And then and
Well,
like,
you just got to get close to that border, and you got to know how to shoot them. You
yeah,
don't want to shoot him
that's
run on that thing.
that's true.
Yeah. You got to let him. If he comes off, you got to let him get past you, so he's gonna run on past you when you hit him. I've killed 2 good deer from a place and luckily I killed both of them, and they fell within 50 yards of the line.
Right. Oh, that's that's cutting your close. A buddy of mine actually, he hunts a lot of urban. He lives in an urban area, and so he hunts a lot of small little tracks that might be in between houses and stuff like that. And and he shot a doe the one day, and it ran into someone's yard that he was hunting behind, and died in their pool. He had to walk up to the door, and be like, "Hey, excuse me, yeah, I shot a deer back here. Was hunting, and it's in your pool now." They weren't super stoked. They weren't real happy with that visit.
Yeah. And that's one reason I like hunting further west.
Mm-hmm.
I know y'all's areas, any big metropolitan area you got a lot more hunters.
Yeah.
So the public land's gonna have more hunting pressure. You can get up Missouri west and get in some areas you never seen nobody.
Yeah.
Especially get back.
What like, I know for me, like, I have different kind of feelings about this, but what's been your favorite place to hunt? Why?
Oh, there's no doubt Iowa's the best whitetail. And it'll take you 2 to 5 years for an unrested to draw one.
Right.
It's you're gonna run into some. I very seldom ever seen an unrested on Iowa public land. You run into some locals hunting.
Yep.
Because everybody knows anything about Iowa. Each unit don't, but 35% of the unrested tag go to archery. It's a lot easier to draw a shotgun tag than it is an archery tag, and that's why there's a high. It's blind to man. Folks have put in for that tag.
Right. Do you typically, when you go out there, go out for shotgun, or do you usually try to draw an archery tag?
No archery, because that's during the rut.
Yeah.
And then their shotgun season is way past the rut.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I sort of looked at Ohio. Their gun season comes in later. You really look at why a lot of big deer come out of some areas is how their gun season falls.
Yeah.
Missouri's gun season didn't come in that second Saturday of November. If it come in the 1st of December like Iowa, man, there'd be just as many big deer come out of Missouri as it does Iowa. But that gun season, they kill a lot of 2.5-year-old deer.
Yeah, yeah. It's when I was in Missouri, I saw some big deer when I was in Missouri, and I think you're 100% right. Like, that's it has all the potential to be just as good as their border neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. It's depending on what state you're in or whatever. When you look at that gun season, just like look at when it falls, it'll tell you what the opportunity is for a lot of the big deer to get killed.
That's right, because they got to get age on them to really have good horns. To have the mass and the length and everything. So.
Yeah. So what's your plan for this year, man? What do you have on the docket? I know you've already started kind of planning. So where are you thinking ahead?
Well, I've hunted a lot of places. I don't really like hunting the same place over a couple of times unless I really kill a big deer in there. I like going to. I'm really probably keying it. I've got enough points. I think I can draw Iowa this year. Uh, Iowa, sure for years. But the only thing about doing this show, you get a lot of contacts. You know, a lot of guys will hit you up. And I got a buddy that I stopped by and seen him when I cut through going to Wisconsin. You know, we got messaging back and forth, and I've got talking to him, and I stopped and seen him. But man, he sent me some cool big pictures of some deer in Illinois, and I think I'm gonna try getting Illinois this year. I know what dates I want to be in Iowa, so like I said, I killed a couple of good deer there on the 18th. So I want to be there a few days before that. So I'm looking at Illinois maybe the first 2 weeks of but I'm throwing around Iowa, and a couple of up there that I talked to there get the weather. And sort of states, I always come back down from the first end of the thing. You know, I've owned that place for 5 years over there, so and it sort of know the front you get Thanksgiving. You know, we 3 hollers, we know where we can, you know, mature at. So that's probably my wife and I've got hopefully drop my antelope tag in Wyoming. I'm thinking about going there. I got enough points I can do a mule deer hunt in Wyoming. I had a buddy call me the other day. He said, "Hey, I found a guy that'll pack us in 10 miles. Will you be interested in going?" I'm like, I might. But see, all this earlier.
Yeah.
You know,
because that's an August hunt, isn't it?
No, it's a bill rifle hunt. Is probably what we're going there.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
It's September the 15th. It is early, but it'll be high. You know, you basically find them above timberline and hunt them. See, I done an elk hunt this year. Anybody ever thought they might want to do an elk hunt? I've done plenty of elk hunts. In my 20s and 30s, 20 years ago. I hadn't been in 20 years, and I had 10 points for Wyoming, and I knew an area I thought I could draw it for. It was 10, and I did, and I'm going to go in there by myself, film it, and kill an elk. I did. I made 3 shows out of it, and I did kill an elk, but it about killed me getting that joker out. I won't never do that again by myself.
So how was that experience, man? Because being solo out west is just a different feeling.
It is. You know, I got there 3 or 4 days early and scouted. You know, I hadn't been right in that exact area. I've been in Idaho, pretty close to it. So I knew the terrain, and I got there early and got scouting. And deer season was going on. I got running with them local deer hunting, and they got, man, there's elk over here. There's elk over here. We've been seeing. So I had some leads where to go where I got there. First morning before the season opened, don't know on Saturday. I packed in that night, or that evening, Friday evening, and got up top. All I brought was 2 tarps. I put one under me and put a tie tarp over me, and I brought a sleeping bag and a pad. And I knew it was going to rain down. They was hollering rain that night. I didn't think nothing about it. About middle of the night, because it come a thunderstorm through. It was lightning. Middle of the night, the dang, my tarp on top just got sagging down on me. What is this? I pushed on it, it just slid off. And I was like, oh, that's snow. I woke up the next morning at 6 to 8 inches of snow.
Jeez.
I didn't get wet or nothing. I had that experience, and it was beautiful, man. I got some footage of this breathtaking scenery because I got up pretty high. But I had something happen to me talking about going solo. When I sort of side hilling around trying to get where them guys told me where some elk was, I was standing there sitting there glassing on a rock, and I just happened to catch something out of the corner of my eye. I looked about 20 yards from me as a mountain lion sort of slipped, took off. And I looked, my gun was about 30 yards from me the other way. And I'm like, yeah, gun. But he had seen me and just slipped out as I'd done a few cow calls and a bugle there. And I think he just slipped up there trying to see what it was.
Yeah.
But it did make your hair stand on the back of your head. So.
Yeah, that's the thing with like some of the places. I was in Idaho. I was in Idaho for the elk opener or elk archery opener this year. And that's the one thing, about being out there in some of those areas of some of those states, is that you ain't the only one hunting a lot of times.
Yeah.
So it definitely makes you be just a little bit more cautious and check your surroundings just a little bit more. Where I was at, there's definitely some mountain lions, and, a small population of
grizzlies. Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah, it's different. It's just a little different, but it's if anybody, I basically say if anybody that ever wants to do it, man, do it when you're young if you can.
yeah,
Because them mountains can be tough on you the older you get.
yeah. They were pretty rough. Like the one thing, so I was in northern Idaho this year, and
Okay.
I'd never been in northern Idaho. The only place I'd really ever been that was close to that was I was in southwestern Montana, down near the Idaho border. Previously, I've elk hunted down there,
Uh-huh.
and I knew a buddy of mine lives in northern Idaho. We were in and around the Coeur d'Alene area, and
Hmm.
he would and I have a couple friends who live out there, and it kind of explained to me like how thick the timber is, and the terrain's rugged, and I was like, okay, yeah, I've been out west before. I was like, I get it. Like it's gonna be a little tougher, and boy, I'll tell you what, man, like that. I was like, it's just like the steepness of the mountains. Like we climbed some tall mountains when we were in southwestern Montana, but I don't think I climbed everything that had that much like rapid, like vertical ascent. And then just how thick everything was. Like you were almost still hunting elk, because there wasn't really anywhere you could glass. You were just trying to find known bedding areas and trying to slip in and still hunt elk.
Oh yeah, that's when you get in cover like that, you can't get up high and see over in it. They're very hard to hunt, unless they just really big.
Yeah, yeah, and they weren't at that point. I mean, we were in elk every day. We could hear them. They might only be
Yeah,
40 yards from us, but we can't see them. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
which was nerve wracking and just makes you mad because you're like, I know they're right there. Like I can hear them. You know what I mean? They're walking around. They're kicking rocks. They're not being quiet at all.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But so you're gonna probably go to Iowa this year, right? Is what you're
Hmm. Yeah.
saying. So when you're traveling to these different states, and I know you like to kind of go, you have some time frames that you kind of target, in some different areas and stuff. I'm just curious, when you go to some of these different states, do you change your style at all, like the way you hunt when you go to these places? Do you make any adaptation because of where you're at, or do you try to just kind of stay true to the way you always kind of hunt, just regardless of where you're at?
I pretty much try staying true to what I know I can hunt. But what's changed is this self filming. You set up a lot different to get footage. Uh, I used to love just slip hunting, and shoot them on the ground because to me, you get the wind in your face when you know deer are moving, and you can slip around and they're a lot easier to kill. But it's almost impossible to get footage of yourself doing that. So
Right.
I so no, it's more of getting there and anywhere I go, it's like I like to scout a day or two. Even if I've been there before, scout and make sure you still got that community scrape in that same spot. If you got a lot of sign around it, you know, I really like if you can use cameras in them states. Just put a few cameras out to sort of see what size deer might be in that spot. But I'm not usually hunting a deer unless I see it. I'm really more hunting big sign.
Right.
Especially like a big community scrape. They allowed to be several bucks coming through it at a given time.
Right. Yeah. That's a lot of times my kind of approach too. Is I'm a big scrape hunting guy. Like I love hunting scrapes, big community scrapes. I'll hunt
Uh-huh.
them as early as like middle 15th of October. Like even if I
Mhm.
know if I have good data on a scrape. The one place that changes for me a little bit is in Kansas because I will hunt. Now, I'm not filming. Every hunt. I'll film when I know I'm going to be in a tree. Like if I'm in Pennsylvania or I'm in Ohio and I know I'm 90% chance I'm probably going to be in a tree, then I'll take camera stuff along and do some filming. But places like Kansas, I I'll go places specifically where there aren't a lot of trees because guys want to try to get up into a tree. And if there aren't trees, or just I won't run into as many guys as often. And
Uh-huh.
so in those situations, I'll hunt a lot from the ground to where I'm more doing almost like Western style hunting, where I'm more spotting and stalking. Like I
Hot
might,
style. Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like I'll sit, for the first day I was there this year, I sat pretty much the whole day and just watched. And I had been there at the same spot the last year. And so I knew this one other little area that was this, back a little ways the opposite direction of where I was glassing because I knew kind of what was happening in the area that I was glassing. So I was like, I don't want to fool with that. I just want to watch and see if what happened last year is happening this year. I was like, then
Uh-huh.
I'm going to go to this backside and hunt because I know there's this little spot here where the does like to hang out and I can maybe catch a buck slipping up. And like the does read the script, they walked like 10 yards from me. I was in a ghillie jacket and CRP on the ground. they read the script. But a lot of times in that situation, it's like I'm hunting either a pinch or the head of a brushy draw or something like that, which is for me is way different than the way I hunt around Pennsylvania. So a lot of times I'll actually adapt the way I'm hunting based on just basically for Kansas. Most other places I'll hunt very similar to how I hunt in PA.
Yeah. Well, mainly, like I said, I hunt river bottoms. You can find, river bottoms even out in western Kansas with trees on it. I have a little, I got longer aiders on my steps where I can go, get up a tree. But no, I pretty much, because, I found my niche. I can halfway get pretty decent footage, self-aiming, and I sort of pretty much do the same thing anywhere I go.
So I'm curious, man, did you call it slip hunting? Is that what you called it?
Yeah, we just call it slip hunting. You just sort of take a few steps, and you walk with try getting where you walk with the wind in your face, and you need them days after in front where you got a little bit of wind, and just sort of slip. Cause the way I look at it, if you see a buck first, it's advantage you. If he sees you first, it's advantage him. So you're trying to just see him first, especially when you get to these big bottoms, especially in the South. If you can get in a big hardwood bottom with big trees, and you can see maybe 100 yards. Oh man, you can tear them up in these bottoms doing that, because you see him, you can get a tree between you, especially when he's roaming or he's with a doe. That's a very productive way. Daniel, he killed a couple this year down here. With a gun, he didn't get a lot of footage, but he killed 2 good deer doing that.
Nice, yeah. Ground hunting is one of those things that's it's probably one of my favorite ways to hunt right now. I don't get to do a whole lot of it unless I'm traveling, somewhere. Usually, just a lot of the places around here are super thick. If I'm on the ground, I can't see but maybe 10 yards, if I'm lucky. But I'm a glutton for punishment because I keep going back to Kansas, and I'm determined to kill a big deer in Kansas off the ground. Past 2 years, I've been, within 15 yards of 2 that would have both been my biggest deer that I've ever shot. And just made some critical mistakes, just some rookie ground hunting mistakes. You know what I mean? Like, because on the ground, man, it's I just feel like it's not very forgiving. You better be playing that wind right. You better be drawing at the right time because you don't have any of the advantages you have being off the ground.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Man, so you'd mentioned community scrapes and stuff like that, and that like I said, like that's one of my favorite things to kind of key on too. But whenever you get to a place and you're going to do a scouting for like a day or two, even if you have some familiarity of the area, I want to get a sense of like what type of sign you're looking for. Are you looking? Some guys are bed guys. Obviously, that would be more of like an October kind of time frame, but. What type of things when you're looking for big sign are you keying in on? Like, do you want to see cluster rubs? Is it one big rub? Is it rubs with scrapes? What does that look like for you for a setup?
Well, the main thing on the scrape, I like looking at the licking branch. A lot of times a big deer, start snapping them licking branches off. If he's got antlers, points, he'll snap them. On rubs, rub will tell you a lot. Like I always say, a big deer rub a little tree, but a little deer can't do a whole lot to a big tree. And especially when you get out west, these bigger body deer compared to what we got in the South, they rub a lot higher. And look how their tines are hitting on up on the tree. If you start seeing one that's rubbing on up and you see tine length that's putting marks in the bark, way on up higher, well, he really got some length to him, tine length to him. Say if there's a sapling 6-8 inches behind that tree's really rubbing, he's skinning it up pretty good. Well, that deer's got some beam length to him too.
Right.
He's on back there. Just things like that I look for. I really like finding a sapling about as big as your thumb or something, and he's just twisted it all up. He's got points with some length, and he gets them between it. He just sits there twisting on it and breaking it all to pieces. So that and big tracks. I love seeing a big old track in a scrape. So that's a good way.
Yeah, that'll get you fired up right there.
That's right. So it's just a little it's just common sense. But hunting a wind, something big deer I killed is, a lot of folks say, man, I got a good wind today. Well, think about it. If you got a good wind, he don't have a good wind.
Right.
So I like catching that marginal wind, and where you get a bend or something, say a bend in the river or something, and he's coming, because he can't walk with that wind in his face all day. Or, when he's up traveling.
Man, you're speaking all kinds of truth with that. My buddy Greg and I joke about that all the time because we predominantly around here get south, southwest, west winds, and we always joke. It's like, man, if deer only ever walked with the wind in their face, during hunting season, all of our deer would end up in California.
That's right.
You know what I mean? Because like they can't possibly walk with the wind in their face all the time. So yeah, I think that for me was like one of the biggest things, in having more encounters and better encounters and getting arrows and deer was just, you got to be a little risky sometimes. Like you got to play that off wind where you might be giving it up a little bit if your calculus isn't right on your setup, you might be hurting yourself, but if it's right, man, it's going to be super right.
That's true. That's true. But like I said, it's got to be where he's still got a pretty good wind, and then your wind's blowing right beside him. I had probably the biggest deer I've ever seen in Iowa. I don't know how long, 2 or 3, 4 years ago now. I had video. I done some rattling. I had a little old buck come in, and he circled around behind me, and he busted me in a spot. And I sat there and filmed it. And it wasn't 15 minutes later, this big deer come, and he wasn't 20 yards further up. He just barely missed my wind, and he come right on up through there and skirted. And he thought and he did have a good wind, but he come and he just barely missed my scent. I was blowing there, and I learned something. Man, man, because think about it, a big deer when he's getting up, especially not after doe, he knows where he's going. When he gets up, he's going to scrape. He's going to check this bedding area, see if any does something. But I guarantee that wind in his mind is where he's going. He's like he gets up and that wind says out of the north. He's like, here's how I think. I just think, well, okay, I'm going to go check these bedding areas over here to the north here. But I got a good wind because he's learned that's his defense. That's what keeps him safe is that wind. His nose. So I really, and like I said, and with Daniel, you talking about Daniel, like I said, I've got him hunting by himself because I just think it's way more productive hunting by yourself. But we always talk, analyze. Like that we talk to each other every night. We're in different states. What happened? What type of wind? What did deer do? And a lot of our scouting, like you talking about, we may scout a day or two. Say if I'm sitting here at the house, a lot of times I sit and wait on the front instead of knowing I can go into Wisconsin and hunt. But they got, say, 70-degree weather. But in 3 days, they got a front coming. I'll try to get there a day before that front and do my scouting. Check my spots that I knew had good sign last year. So when that front comes through, I'm ready. I'm ready to be in a tree.
Right. Now, do you hunt the front or do you hunt the back side of the front?
Well, I like behind it. I like it. But me and Daniel was talking a couple nights ago. He killed 3 different deer this year when the front was coming through. Right when it changed and the wind shifted and the wind was blowing hard. But we got thinking, they got talking. All 3 of them deer he killed was close to bedding. So they wasn't up moving far, but they was up on their feet. Yeah. So he was in pretty close to them. The deer I killed a couple of them this year. It was on the second day behind the front. A lot of times that barometric pressure coming up a little bit, it's clear. But the deer I was killed was roaming. They was coming through on trails. They was traveling when they come through.
Right. Yeah, I think one of them for Daniel was a Kansas deer in the front, right? Because that was as like the wind kind of switched. And then so yours that was on the back side, like what states were those in?
Well, one of them was out west. I'm not going to say the state on it because there's not much public land. Another was in Arkansas.
Okay.
And like I said, it was right on the back. It was after the front, it come through. I seem like I like it when you got that constant wind, not just that gusty wind. Seem like right that front comes through, you got that them ice bars are close together and that wind's just howling. Because you got so much difference in the pressure right there. But then after a few days, it sort of settles down. You just sort of got that constant. Most places we hunt is north or northwest.
Right.
Well, I know you said y'all's are more of a western because y'all a lot further east than we are. Mm-hmm. But it seems like when you kill them big deer, it's that 7 to 10 mile an hour. Right. They've got a constant winds, so they know they're up walking it's not whirling on them because you get a sort of constant like that. It's sort of steady. Right. It's a steady blowing to them.
Yeah, that constant wind. So you can, that feels like the right wind too, just for predictability as well, right? It's like you get lower than that, you start to get that little bit of variable in it where sometimes you're safe, then all of a sudden you're not.
That's right. That turn blow the other way. You might get a gust in there, like you said, and it'll start bouncing off stuff, start whirling, and then you get that constant, and it's fine, and then it slows down, it starts like it goes the other way. You just sort of get that,
Now with the wind, do you Is there a wind that you particularly like? Because I know some guys, love an east wind because it's a very kind of random wind, if you will. Like you don't get a lot of just straight east winds, and sometimes it'll kind of throw the deer out of sorts for like a little while.
Well,
What they got to kind of recalibrate. Do you like to play anything like that?
well, see, our east wind here in the south means we've got a front coming, and it's
Mm,
sucking that wind from the east and south. It's our southeast wind, so it's always in front of a front down here,
got
and
it.
that's usually not
Yeah.
good.
Right.
So it depends on more of your area.
Good.
Like I said, I see in y'all's area it makes that, but like I said, that varies in different parts of the country though.
Right.
It was weird. I really like after that front comes through because that's just I got a factor of what I look for killing mature deer. I got three factors, and I rank them. It's 1, 2, and 3. One is weather. If you got a front coming. 2 is a moon phase. Your major and minor, and 3 is the rut. So I look at it, say in November, the rut's going on in the Midwest, so you got 1. You get a major front comes through, there's 2. Well, that move time, like I say about the full moon, man, if you can get that full moon, because a full moon, you got a minor in the morning, you got a major in the middle of the day, you got a minor in the evening on a full and a new moon. Before and after that, you just got 2. You got a minor and a major. It varies because, like I said, the moon's, what's it on like 25-hour cycle with some 24, so it's like 50 minutes later that time of year every day. So I play them 3 things, and I do a lot of that on the scouting. Save the days. This evening's going to hit the major. The major time is when the moon's straight up or straight down, and it's going to hit from like that 3 to 5 o'clock. And you already got a front coming through. It's done been through. I might do my scouting in the morning and make sure I'm in that stand in the evening.
Right.
So,
Yeah. That makes sense. I'm curious, there's a couple of my buddies that I've talked to that, one of them, he hunts religiously by the moon. I mean, that's like when he looks back on like his wall, he can go back to the dates and go, yep, red moon, red moon, red moon. Like it's almost all of them. Right. So I'm curious for you, how many days or how many deer or what percentage of the deer do you think you've killed during that particular moon phase?
well, see, I don't really call it the red moon like a lot of them. What's red moon? Right after something? It was a certain time of the month.
Yeah, it's
I
like
don't.
there's a handful of them that happens. Like it'll either line up with the morning or to line up with the evening. I think it's very similar to like the major and the minor, but I'm not real. I'm
Well,
not
see,
real firm on the moon stuff.
okay, well, because here's how I look at it. You got all different type move and feeding charts. To me, they all vary off of the position the moon's in the sky. Not if it's quarter, if it's half, or if it's full. It's like when it comes up in the morning, like sun's rising, that's a minor, and when it's setting, is a minor. But when it's straight overhead and when it's straight down, it's a major. It's pretty simple. So you can look at the moon chart and just what position it's in the sky, and you rank it on that. But we've seen where we kill a lot more bigger deer on the full moon than we do the new moon. Even if they just say November 10th, it's prime time in Kansas. Just say that date.
Mhm.
But this year the new moon's gonna fall on the 10th. I would rather for it to be a full moon on the 10th. Oh, so a lot of times I look at that in advance. I go like now when I'm starting to plan my stuff, I sort of look when the full moon's going to be
Hmm.
because it will affect that. I don't think it affects the rut itself. Actually, I just think it affects the deer movement during the daytime. I think they do more of it at night. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
so
Totally. Yep.
that doe will still come in that same date,
Right.
but you just won't see them. I've heard a philosophy before that some guys say that deer, that big buck may not move, but say 50 or 100 yards from his bedding area,
Mhm.
or instead of a half a mile from his bedding area. Because look how much chance you got to kill him if he's moved a half a mile compared to a couple hundred yards, or 50 yards.
Yeah, it's the difference between setting up in his outside of his bedroom or a staging area or whatever the case
Uh
is.
huh.
If you have a sense of how much more he's going to move, and it
Yep.
gives you better options with playing the wind too. You know,
Yep.
so
Yep.
so man, I want to shift gears here real quick, and I want to talk about the situation that you had, earlier this fall here, with your boat, because I know we've talked a little bit about water access, man, but you had quite a scary, situation that I think when I spoke with Daniel, I think that had just happened, because I think he and I had scheduled to talk, and then we ended up moving the date because he was coming to help you grab your boat, and then whenever we actually finally had a chance to talk, he was like, "Yeah," he kind of explained what had happened, and then I watched the videos. So, what all went down with that?
Well, y'all probably don't get this much rain like we do here in the South, so I'm used to it. We had a 5-inch rain, had one of them fronts come through, super warm in front of it. Well, most time in December, if we get super warm weather and there's a major cold front behind it, we got a drastic change. It's probably going to rain all day one day. Well, I went and scouted this place because I knew the dates. I was hunting my rut dates there. Daniel killed a good deer there. Them dates the year before, and 2 years before, I'd missed a big deer in there on them dates. So I knew the rut was going to be going on. Well, I went into a place and scouted. I went in on a Tuesday and scouted. Knew the front was coming Wednesday. Well, Thursday, I wanted to be, in a tree in that area where we'd kill 2 bucks, because I knew the weather was going to be perfect, the rut, and I knew the move time. Well, I got up that morning, and I knew it rained, and I knew the river was going to be up, but man, I've been on the Mississippi.
All right, folks, sorry about that. We're back, little technical difficulty. So Jeremy was talking about the rain that they got and the storm that they got, and ironically, he's having that now. So he had a little phone issue. But man, I think where I lost you was you had mentioned that you had got a full day of rain, and that wasn't something that was unfamiliar, familiar to you. You knew the river was up, but that was you were used to that type of thing.
That's right, and like I said, when I got to the boat ramp where I wanted to go that morning, it was flat full. It's level to the bank. But like I said, I've been on rivers I've been on the Mississippi River when it's full before. So I went ahead and went into the area that I was hunting. Got in there, man, killed a good deer that evening right before dark, big 9-point. Had him on video and everything. I started out with him, hacked him out. Sort of got turned around walking out because my phone was about dead, and I had it tracked in because I was walking in probably a mile from the boat. And I finally made it back to the boat. Threw my stuff in the boat, had the deer boned out, and I pushed my boat off. And like I said, I've been in most all the major rivers, Ohio, Missouri, Arkansas. Didn't think nothing about it, but there was a tree sticking out off the bank, probably 40 yards below me. And when I pushed out, I tried cranking the motor, didn't crank. Well, I hit that dang tree, and it got me sideways in the current, and it had me pinned, and I couldn't move it. I couldn't move the boat one way or the other. And I'm hunting out a little canoe. It's sort of like a canoe, but you can put a 10-horse motor on it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I moved just a little bit, and water started coming in. Like, that's not good.
Yeah.
And I couldn't go nowhere because I was pinned in that tree with it, because that water was running so fast it just had me. And next time I moved, that sucker just flipped over with me. I'm talking about, I had my life jacket and everything on, but this was like 2 hours after dark. After that time I got back to the boat with that deer, I grabbed that tree that had me hung. I climbed up on it, and I was thinking, man, I'm 5 miles to the nearest anything I know. And like I said, I hadn't hunted this area a lot. It was down in the Delta in Mississippi, and I knew back up the river, I seen a field when I come around through there. And I thought, man, I'm going to have to walk back to that field, because I know they get their tractors and stuff out of that field somehow or another and go to the road. But just luckily, I pulled my phone out, and like I said, I was soaking wet. And the temperature about 34 degrees.
I was just going to ask you how cold it was. That's not
that front had just come through, but I toted that deer out. I wasn't cold at that point, and I got my phone out, and where I went to school with a guy in college. He was a game warden buddy, and I talked to him a couple days before and said, "Hey, you gonna do an interview with me if I kill deer on public land?" So I had his number, and when I first opened my phone up to recent calls, his popped up. Well, I called him. It rang and rang. He didn't answer. Like, man, my phone was about dead. But luckily, I got in with 911. I called 911. Said, "Hey, man, I'm not hurt or anything. I'm just stranded. Boat done turned over. I've done lost everything, and I'm out in the river. I wasn't even on the bank. I was out in the river on that tree, hanging out there." And they said, "Stay on it just a second. Let us get your location. We'll come get you." So about 2 hours later, they finally come got me out. But I wasn't scared that I wouldn't have made it out. I just knew if I was going to have to walk out, soaking wet.
Yeah.
It was going to be a long, miserable night.
It was good. Yeah, that's for sure, man. Goodness, man. Well, I'm glad you're okay, man, because that stuff is just scary business. You know what I mean? Whenever you're dealing with, up water that's up, and like I always say, like, water is one of those things. And when you're out west, I'm like, to me, racing water or water that's up gives me the same feeling I get whenever I'm out west. It's like it makes you feel real small, real quick. And it doesn't really care who you are, or where you come from. It'll take you just the same.
Well, and that happens so quick. Like I said,
Yeah.
I've been on a lot of rivers, a lot of rivers way after dark. If I'd have just cranked my motor before I pushed off, it's always cranked the first or second pull, and it didn't crank that time, and it just. But that's one thing I really said about that show. Have a backup plan, y'all. Even if you're going hunting somewhere, let somebody needs to know where you're at. You never know what might happen. You slip and fall out of a stand or something.
Yeah.
So
that's
that's one thing I'd really say. Hey, really think of the safety side of it now.
Yeah. The most important thing you do whenever you go hunting is that you come home.
That's right. That's right.
It's like I always let my wife know where I'm going to be, and if I'm hunting solo somewhere, especially if I'm going back in somewhere kind of far, it's like I'll even text her when I'm there. If it's somewhere where I don't have cell service and I know that, it's like I'll carry a GPS like with me that I'll use whenever I'm out west, so I can text her from that so she knows where I'm at.
Yeah.
Just better be safe than sorry, I guess is my motto.
Yeah, and see, I've got an app on my phone. As long as I've halfway got decent service or a little bit of service, she knows exactly where my last location is.
Right.
And that's good to know because like I say, you never know what might happen.
Yeah, exactly. Well, man, I got one more question for you before I let you get out of here. What I always like to ask this: if you had 3 tags to fill on public land, and your life depended on it, and you could get any hunter you wanted to, whether they're living, they've passed, whether you know them, you don't know them, they're famous, not famous, whatever the case is. If you needed 3 tags filled and your life depended on it, who are those 3 hunters that you would give those tags to?
Like, see, I'm old school now. I'm probably older than most of y'all. Now, Chuck Adams was probably one of the greatest old bow hunters. He would be one. I like the Nightingale boys. Like I said, I like Aron David. So I guess that's who I'd go after them.
Nice. It's a fine list. I think you'll be safe. How's that?
Yeah, they're old now. They might not, but in their day, they've done pretty good.
Right. Well, before I let you get out of here, buddy, why don't you let folks out there listening know where they can find out more about you, where they can find out more about the show, and any of the social media that they can follow you guys on. That's
right. Say it's just Do It Yourself Hunter. It's the name of our YouTube channel. Check it out. Been doing it for years. We got, like I said, I'm older. I'm just getting into the social media stuff. But you can go to, we got a Facebook group, Do It Yourself Hunter. Check it out. It's for the Do It Yourself Hunter. It's not just us. We got TikTok and Instagram. Daniel does a lot of that. So that's where you can check us out at.
Awesome.
And we're going to do several trade shows this time. I don't know when you put this podcast out, but the NWTF, we're going to have a booth at that show. That's not this weekend, but next weekend. That's a very good show to attend.
Yeah, this episode should be out before then, I think.
Okay, so like I said, if you hear that, it may be, you got to make plans really to get motel rooms and everything in Nashville. But that is a very good show.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Everyone should go check out the YouTube channel. If you're headed to the NWTF, make sure you stop by the booth. Check them out, man. I appreciate the content you put out. It's good, honest, authentic content. That's why I, reached out to you and Daniel to talk to you, because you guys are the type of guys I like to have on the show, and I think you guys represent us the right way, and the fact that you're looking to help folks kind of get out of their comfort zone and have more adventures, man. I just super appreciative of that approach, and just appreciative of your time, man.
All right. Well, thank you for having us.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening, and if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating, and be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And hell, while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there as well. I'd be super appreciative if you do those couple things for me. Before I shut this thing down, I need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible: Spartan Forge, Tethered, Exodus Outdoor Gear, and Genesee Beer. And until next time, we'll see y'all.